We'll go ahead and jump to BioWare Staff Skeptical. Basically, Jason Schreier has gotten a bunch of popularity lately because he wrote some really good Kotaku articles, talked about issues in Anthem that was created by BioWare's mismanagement from the beginning. I really encourage you to read his articles. They've been very good, very thorough. He's an author of Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. And, maybe you hate Kotaku, but this guy's legit. His investigation and integrity as a journalist. After his article went live, the internet went on fire, and BioWare kind of had some offhand comments saying that they didn't appreciate the article, even though they clearly never read it. They claimed he was making personal attacks, which read the article, he's not. But BioWare had a meeting afterwards because, internet was a rage and all their dirty laundry had basically been aired. They talked about how there were stress casualties, just things that are completely unheard of to emphasize their toxic work environment. But BioWare held this meeting afterwards, and it seems a little 50-50. It seems like half of the staff were kind of like, well, it's encouraging that they held this meeting so that they understand the severity of the situation. And now everybody's looking at BioWare and thinking, wow, you're a you're a POS company. So they appreciate them, having that meeting and bringing attention to it. But the other half just felt like they made the same promises that they always do. They'll try to do better, try to make a less toxic and more family friendly workplace. Just arbitrary stuff that you can say, but who knows whether or not it's actually going to have changes and make any real difference. Jason doesn't write another article about this. He doesn't list any of the people he talked to. He just basically says that he's skeptical, and he has lots of concerns about it. I can't really blame him. Anthem's it's really looked like garbage lately. The only thing positive Jason Schreier could say was that the term Bioware Magic wasn't used in that meeting. So at least that there's some level of understanding that the company can't just run around and say things will be better because we're saying that they'll be better. It won't just magically happen because we say it will. They understand that internally there's something wrong that's damaging them. But again, whether or not it actually gets resolved, who knows? Got another article on BioWare. Their Anthem stuff just continues. Every week we'll talk about Anthem. It's gonna happen. And they had this big dev stream planned. You're not up to date on Anthem. It's a garbage game. It's one of those proof of concepts and gets turned into a minimal viable product. There's little to no gameplay. There's next to no level of engagement and encouragement for playing. But it's a $60 AAA game that they spend 8 years on development. So all of BioWare's money is basically in Anthem. And everybody's wondering whether or not they're just going to crumble. Like, everybody sees the house of cards and the wind's blowing. They're just waiting for it to collapse. And Anthem had a dev stream planned. They canceled it. Claimed that they had internet connection issues and that their backup internet wasn't strong enough to do a live stream. They refused to post any notes or updates. Instead, said that they were going to postpone it for at least a week, which is really bizarre. If you just had an internet connection issue, fix the internet, do the live stream. If you just wanted to get the information out, make a blog post, give us details. But kind of seems like an excuse to artificially delay it. And I could see where internally they were thinking, well, we don't want to say that we're behind, let's just go ahead and postpone the dev stream and blame it on unforeseen technical issues. And the internet didn't like that. The people who are still playing Anthem are very much waiting for new content. They were very much waiting for this live stream to basically explain all of these new content that they're supposed to introduce, which is showcased on BioWare's website, where they have a planned roadmap for things they're supposed to implement every month in Anthem. And, it's the 22nd of April. We've seen like one of these things or heard about one of these out of so many of them. It's really lack of communication is ridiculous. A lot of people are just basically speculating. I mean, there's 12 features that they're heard about one of them. I mean, I think it's a dead dog. I'm waiting for them to just crumble, man. And that sounds terrible because you're basically talking about a game development company that has tons of jobs in it. But, man, maybe those people just deserve a better place to work and are better elsewhere in life. Because stuff like this it really brings you down. Kind of showcase some of the stuff that they're talking about. This is their little roadmap, and they've got little icons talking about. To be honest, I don't play Anthem, so I don't know what any of this is. A lot of it just says Cortex locked, saying, "Hey, we haven't unveiled this yet." But there's legendary missions. There's weekly strongholds. There's a lot of individual things they've teased at and put on the roadmap. Again, haven't heard about anything else. A whole lot of stuff that they get to. Mastery system overhaul. There's leaderboards, guilds. Apparently, Cortex locked are free play events. It's just really saddening. It really just feels like BioWare is going to a dumpster fire. And I feel like all of the internet feels the same way. I mean, it doesn't seem like they're going to keep up with their roadmap. There's not really much of an excuse for that, right? Like, they're not doing thousands of patches on like a day-to-day basis they needed to do that prevented them from coming up with the development. Although they did have lots of patches because of issues. Those issues were ones that they created by making a minimal viable product. The loot system's just balked. There's people were talking about they'd really like a player auction house. Nowhere on this. The last thing they're gonna do. If anything, they'll just let you spend real money to buy items. That's the kind of game it's turning into. How much money can we get out of players in order to offset this disaster? I feel really bad for the people who worked on it. I feel really bad for the multiple studios who were forced to work on it. They had other projects like Dragon Age that they wanted to work on. They're just forced to work on that project. Game comes out and shit. Even now that it's out, developers working on it aren't doing what they're saying they're supposed to. Yeah, that's just an all-around sad time. I really hope that their dev stream gets rehosted before the end of the month. I hope they showcase all 12 of those features. But to be honest, I think you're in a fever dream if that's what you're expecting. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they do their dev stream, have it be an hour, and them say, we've completed one thing and we're pushing back these other 10 or 11 things to next month. You don't see that communication. Lack of communication means they don't have anything to show. You gotta wonder what they're doing 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. But on to a more lighter subject. We are going to talk about Subverse, a brand new Kickstarter. a Kickstarter with over 1 million that's already been raised. And the game is, of course, drawing attention, as you've seen, for those colorful waifu characters. A lot of it tends to mirror the Mass Effect universe, but there's a lot more adult content. Mass Effect had some dating and some sexualized stuff, but this is just full on adult content. The Kickstarter paints a very clear picture about what the game is about. In the waifu section, it states the following: "What can we say? We love to entertain, so we decided to pack Subverse to the brim with waifus, multiple alien species, and organic classification, all of which are created by the world-renowned art director and Squid Girl titty enthusiast, Zhang Feng Din. The original Kickstarter was only for $129,000. Since it's raised over $1 million and has 32,000 backers, pretty sure this hentai game is going to get made. If you're interested in this kind of content, you can play $10 for early access on Steam." And this really cracked me up. Under platforms for the Kickstarter page, it just simply says, "Gabe got us this far. Might as well stick with Gabe." I love that. Like, you can tell that they're right on the money with Epic exclusivity, and they're really pointing a finger and wagging. Amen, brother. Good on you for pointing that out. That was very clever. You know, and Steam has no problem putting those adult games on. They'll always be a place for those types of gamers to shop at. There's a lot of other sites you could go to. It's nice to have a more legitimate company like Steam involved. You know, Epic went out of their way to basically say, we're not going to put those types of games on Epic, and I guarantee you that's going to bite them in the ass. They're going to pay money for an Epic exclusivity, and there's going to be way too much adult content on it, and then it's going to be well, why did you pay them money to put this game on Steam, but you won't let other people who you didn't pay put their games on Steam? Banning things for nudity is the dumbest thing, especially if you're an adult. I can understand when you're like, well, there's children on the site, and saying that I'm 18 plus isn't really verifying the age. I can understand. But banning a game because of the content, unacceptable. Let's go ahead and skip to our next article about Borderlands 3, a VA drama. So, close this. All the waifus. Thing just keeps. Oh, I think it's. Yep, this was the Mass Effect game. Jump to the VA stuff. Troy Baker denies he turned down a role in Borderlands. So, for those of you who don't know, voice actors who are renowned for their roles in Borderlands 2, Troy Baker among them, basically took to Twitter to express their dismay. Multiple articles and interviews painted them as turning down these roles for Borderlands 3, when in fact the studio told them that they would not be reprising their roles. Basically what I'm saying is the studio told them that they were not going to be rehired for the third one. And then told everybody that the VA actors turned it down. Which is weird, you know, if you just didn't want them involved, or you wanted to reuse their previous stuff, or there was more important characters to record, just say that. But yeah, voice actor Troy Baker has expressed his dismay publicly about Gearbox Software's CEO Randy Pitchfork, who has made false statements and is quickly backpedaling. And Randy is of course famous for, shitting on Steam, and basically saying the Epic Store is where it's at. He's all about Epic exclusivity, despite the fact that you cannot play Epic games offline or have cloud save. Uninstall that game. That is it. That is all your save. Since Borderlands is known for its colorful characters and quirky dialogue, it kind of spells trouble that voice actors weren't asked to return roles. Placing voice actors is usually done to budget constraints, and if you look at Gearbox's list of IP, you'll notice something a little intriguing. Borderlands is the only thing that they have to support them. Go onto their website and look at the list of games that they have. And, I mean, ones that you'll recognize, Duke Nukem and Brother in Arms. No one's buying those games. I think they did one of the versions of Counter-Strike way back in the day, but again, like it's so, all that stuff is so old now. They don't have any new exciting IP. All they have is Borderlands. And I don't doubt that Borderlands will be successful in terms of a profit margin. However, I would like to remind viewers that you can be successful with a profit margin and then still have your game studio closed. I feel like that's what's going to happen here. If this game sucks in any way or form, with the Epic exclusivity drama already in there, let's say they decided not to reprise the roles of voice actors, and they just, they reuse the same dialogue, and the voice acting is just, it's a 5 out of 10, so mediocre. Stuff like that on top of the Epic really going to bring down universal feeling of how positive the game is. And again, I'm sure it'll still make money hand over fist, but the perception of it will be different. Unfortunately, the perception is what really matters, because, we've seen in the past, publishers who own game studios will say, hey, we were expecting you to break records with 10 million sales. You only did 8 million sales. I know that's twice the amount of sales you did last year. That's not enough. They'll just close it. So, Borderlands 3, I've got a lot of suspicion. I hate the Epic exclusivity, so maybe I'm just hoping it bursts into flames and dies in a fire. But on the other hand, like, stuff like this pops up, and you're like, why do you need to lie about it? And if you were misinformed, Randy, CEO of Gearbox, why don't you just say it? Be like, oh, my bad, wrong information. You're the CEO. No one expects you to have personally interviewed Troy Baker for his voice actor work. We expect you to not even be crunching numbers. We assume you sit in business meetings for all your evil. But if they fail with Borderlands 3, it's gonna be the end of them. Hashtag Anthem. But that is the 5 articles that we have listed today. If you're watching on YouTube, I forgot to hit record, so you missed all the PlayStation 5 details. Sorry. On the flip side, though, you can come to my live stream Retro Chronicled if you want to see the original 10-15 minutes of. Again, sorry, YouTube. Or at least I try, as you can see. eBay listings are, of course, done by my co-host, and he's not here. So, no eBay listings. All I have are media recommendations. Media recommendations I have for today is this rather old TV show. I say old. Came out in 2009. Years ago. Defying Gravity. So, I binge watched this whole thing. I would say it's a solid 7 out of 10. Fairly reasonable IMDb rating. Yeah, it's about. Let me go ahead. Yeah, it's about 8 astronauts, and the 8 astronauts are really, really sexually active. I think that was the selling point for the series, is that they wanted to make sure that it wasn't just sci-fi, that it got also like lots of romance stuff going on. Sex sells. But it's about 8 astronauts that are going to go on a 6-year voyage across the solar system. and they're gonna like stop by each planet basically and pick up rocks and have all these samples. And all got a device called a halo. It's supposed to prevent their sexual inhibitions since they're going to be on a 6-year journey. And in the beginning, you basically figure out that the halo's not working. Either people aren't using it or they're managing to psychologically break through the barrier where the halo is supposed to prevent sexual activity. And you jump back and forth between the current mission that they're on. They're doing the 6-year journey, and like 5 years prior, where they're signing up as astronauts going through the. So every time you're going to get, hey, this is what they're doing in space, then a weird in between recap of, well, here's how they got here from 5 years ago. Since there's 8 astronauts, there's a variety of characters for them to paint the backstory on. There's only 1 season of this show. It did get canceled, so if you're one of those people who just can't handle the story not ending, don't watch the show because it doesn't resolve. There is tons and tons and tons of stuff that they just left open-ended because they were assuming they were going to get season 2, not a season 4. There's a lot of mismanagement on how the show got funded, and I really think that the mismanagement of it being funded, sold, I believe, ABC, is really the heart problem of why it didn't continue. If I remember correctly, ABC waited until like 3 weeks before they were going to premiere the show to say, hey, you know what? We'll buy it. They're in talks the whole time, but they never gave them that. So 3 weeks before the show comes out, that's not enough time to buy a bunch of slots on TV, advertise the show. So they had almost no advertisement. Then when it did come out, the advertisement was, it's Grey's Anatomy in space, which I don't watch Grey's Anatomy, but I'm pretty sure it's a medical show. And I think the creator of this show also directed Grey's Anatomy. So that's literally the only reason why that tagline is. It has nothing to do with Grey's Anatomy. I guess if you're into the personal relationship drama, that's in there. But it's a really weird tagline to stick on this television. But ABC bought it for, I think, 8 episodes, or 6 episodes, something like that. And they decided they didn't like it. They were just like, hey, no thanks. Well, the company that made it was like, well, we're going to produce 13 episodes regardless. Like, we have the story to finish out. So I think it's like Canada CCTV was like, all right, guys, we will purchase the remaining episodes of 9 through 13. However, ABC is not allowed to air it because they didn't fucking pay for it. So it was only then finished and completed on like Canadian TV, and then later bought by, I think, BBC, and then the whole thing was fully rebroadcasted on BBC, all 1 through 3. I really like the series though. I have this weird thing about sci-fi. If I'm in space, that's where I want to stay. I have an issue where watching science fiction, let's go back to Earth. I hate that. So I'm not gonna lie, like 50% of every episode is just them going back to Earth and doing that. Well, 5 years ago, when we were astronauts in training, they're really trying to like fill in character arcs, show you how they developed as a character. I usually appreciate that stuff. It's just that they're on Earth. It takes me out of it for you to go, here's 15 minutes in space, here's 15 minutes on Earth, here's 15 minutes in space, here's Earth. I really just want to see them in space the whole time. If they call back home and have a conversation NASA, that's fine. I just don't want to see, the NASA director go get coffee and go microwave a burrito. Like, there's no point in imagery here for sci-fi. You bring me back down to earth, just it really kills the mood. So if you're like me and you don't really like science fiction when they focus on Earth, you might have an issue here because, like I said, 50% just, hey, let me tell you what I did in order to become an astronaut in order to get here. And, again, it's trying to build personal arcs. I normally like that. I'm really just wanting to focus on the space stuff. The space stuff is so good. That's why, again, it's infuriating for you to cut back and go, well, his wife and kid who are at home miss him. That's great. I don't care. Tell me more about space. The I guess somewhat spoilers, but it's the plot line basically of the season is that all these astronauts are in space. They're going to spend 6 years up there. They're going to go to all these planets and try to get scientific data. It is the future because, of course, we don't have technology. I think it's like 2050 or something. But we don't have the technology to, of course, explore our solar system. But they buy like advertisement time from like candy bar people, and those candy makers expect them to do like an infomercial in space about their candy. So you get all these like weird, bizarre situations where even though they're in space, they're doing shit for like fucking commercials, and you can tell that the idea is that they don't like doing it, but it's supposed to be what's funding the mission. And they get into weird situations, and minor spoilers, where honestly the whole crew basically starts hallucinating. Minus maybe a few don't see the action, but they start getting into situations where they're hallucinating. NASA doesn't want to explain to anybody why they're hallucinating. They don't want to tell the astronauts why they're hallucinating. And they don't want to tell the people, the candy makers who are trying to make the commercial that their astronauts are hallucinating. So you get like bizarre sequences where there's astronauts basically tripping in space trying to make a candy bar commercial while they're hallucinating their unborn child or dead relatives or weird stuff like that. And since it's supposed to be like a live stream, NASA of course freaks out when they realize they can't handle the situation and cuts the live stream. But then you still have 8 astronauts tripping in space who aren't in control of their vision and hearing. It's the worst case possible scenario. Again, spoilers, you find out that there is a unknown entity that NASA intentionally put on the space station, and they are taking that unknown entity with them throughout the 6 years of their journey. And there's more than one unknown entity. There's actually one on every planet. And I guess the idea is they had one on Earth. So that's the one that they have. But now there's one on every planet. They're going to take this 6-year mission to go to every planet and pick up every unknown entity. But this unknown entity is like a fractal pattern that just causes everybody around it to hallucinate. It's literally like the worst thing you could have in space. You find out that it even can like bend reality. It makes like a tomato plant grow way more than it ever possibly should. Yeah, so that's kind of the plot line, is that you have all these astronauts in space. They know that they're on this 6-year or journey to go to all the solar systems. I think it's just up space rocks. But then they start hallucinating, find out that there's like this alien, again, I'll call it like an entity on board. NASA knew about it, and they're actually intentionally sending them to go pick up all the other stuff. But they haven't informed anyone else about it. Like, they haven't told the public, and they haven't even told the fucking astronauts. Astronauts are like, what if I don't want to do this? What if I don't want to be on a spaceship for 6 years where I'm just like tripping out of my gourd picking up alien artifacts? Like, that's not why I became a scientist. But yeah, it's I think it's a great show. I'm sad that it ended with only one season. I feel like it's one of those shows that they had planned for 4 seasons, and definitely see, a lot of ways where they would have gone with it. I did a little bit of research into Show Bible, the producer who wrote it, gave a little bit more extra details about how they would have went with seasons, deals, happened. I'm just like, man, like it's such a great idea. It sucks that they the full execution. But yeah, that is day. I've done my 5 articles. I've done my media recommendation. So thank you all for watching. Have a great day.